Happy Friday to you. Hope you're doing great. We are about to transition out of this document that I've been going through the last couple days. It's the document for candidates. It's basically a guide that I said was really helpful in terms of the objectives of these videos. These videos are to inform you as a resident just of how your local government works, but also to let you know what kind of candidate I am, who I hope to be and plan to be as your mayor. And that's why this publication that came out by the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, as well as some municipal administrative organizations, it was really helpful to, kind of as a resident 101. But the document is moving into more candidate-specific information, and so I'm going to leave that there. But I wasn't entirely finished with this page, so I want to go from this into the next couple of days, if all goes to plan, and sometimes it doesn't. With these videos, I go down different rabbit holes. But I want to move more into the municipal plan and my plan. Now, I have said as mayor, it is not smart, it is not prudent to go into an election campaign or especially into the mayor's chair with a rigid plan, because you are looking around at the council table and the election is determined by residents, and residents will determine the priorities. That said, I do want to see a 5-year plan for the community, a 10-year plan. We have a capital plan, as I mentioned. We do have this municipal plan. And so I really want to use this as the basis on which we build the order of tackling certain priorities. But today I want to talk primarily about the thing that may be the biggest crisis in our municipality, and therefore the top priority. Now, of course, healthcare has always remained at a premium. I really believe that. Just today, there was a press release that basically announced that the collaborative care clinic that was promised in St. Stephen will not only not open in the next couple months, but it will be another year. That is, to me, unacceptable, although perhaps unsurprising. St. Stepheners' hearts have been broken over and over again, whether it comes to a hotel. Here it comes. No, it doesn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. I see this kind of sometimes despair at the door, sometimes just dismissiveness. Here again, St. Stephen was promised something that is not coming by the provincial government. And that really does touch on what I want to talk about today. This is the kind of thing we need to build up. We need to be building up services and infrastructure. We also need to be building up our confidence and our resilience, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because when you're resilient, that means you are getting knocked down. We have to get back up again. But it also means building up our ability to advocate for ourselves and frankly be unsatisfied. I would say not angry in the rude sense, angry in the motivated sense, in the mobilized sense, in the sense that, hey, is our local government, are our representatives actually pushing and advocating and lobbying for us? If so, how? What are we hearing from them? What have they done? Who have they talked to? That's really important. That's all part of transparency. That's the kind of thing that I plan to do as mayor in this way, and of course, in more formal forums like council meetings, etc. Now, I want to continue today. Yesterday, we talked about the levels of government, what they're responsible for. There's kind of these silos, but of course, there is a lot of bleeding between them, as we mentioned yesterday. But explicitly at the bottom of this document, there are a few items that we do see. This document says, now, these are specifically more common areas where the different levels of government will need to collaborate, because the way that their mandates are described, there is a lot of overlap. Okay, so the first one, I just want to read them out for you, and then I'll talk about the real crisis that I think is facing our municipality and what we need to do about it, and why I am the candidate who will really have a distinguished opinion on this, perhaps. That's for you to decide. Environment is the first one, protecting the environment and adapting to climate change. Now, of course, the province, for example, we just had a budget release a couple days ago. As I said, I'm scrutinizing that. I'm looking at that. There is something today that is in the works that I want to talk about, hopefully before the 15-minute mark shuts down this video. That's just a self-imposed time that I placed on this. But in terms of environment, for example, the province will designate funds towards environment and climate change mitigation. But of course, municipalities are also responsible for that. So when we think of forest fires, for example, the municipality needs to invest in preventative equipment, protective equipment, firefighting equipment. We saw a scary fire a couple years ago, and the municipality does need to be investing in that kind of climate event, which will likely become more and more common. And if we just stand here with our hands in our pockets and say, well, it's probably a provincial thing. No, fighting fires is definitely municipal, but the province also needs to see that this is a widespread growing concern and occurrence across New Brunswick, and also provide funding. So that's an example of a joint effort. Things like flooding along coastal areas, that's another example. Seawall development building up as the St. Croix River levels rise over the next number of decades. The municipality needs to look at what are we going to do to prevent flooding and things like that. So obviously that's an unpleasant expense sometimes. The province can help, the federal government can help, but the municipality is the one that needs to be setting its house in order and asking those levels of government what it wants and what it needs and why it's crucial, which again will be very important for what I want to talk to you about today. In infrastructure, funding major projects, that's another thing where the municipality looks around and says, for example, if our water treatment facility is at the end of its life, well, the province also needs to help struggling municipalities with funding municipal infrastructure. That's something the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick is really good about advocating for. St. Stephen would need to add its voice to that. We need to kind of inventory things that we need and work with the province and federal government at times for funding these kinds of projects. Economic development. I talked about how Future St. Stephen is the economic development agency here in St. Stephen. So here we are, advocating for ourselves, trying to bring businesses, and I would say not just bring businesses from outside. Thriving communities really look around and say, who are our local builders? Who are our local developers? How can we help them? I am really committed as a business owner myself, someone who's very entrepreneurial. I want to see homegrown businesses feel supported, and that is something the municipality needs to do in conjunction with the provincial government. Now, the last one is housing, and this is where I really want to land today. Housing, providing affordable housing and addressing homelessness. I think this is the issue confronting us at a crisis level right now. Homelessness, of course, is more in our face because of the disturbances that result when people are thrown out of their homes, whether they are unable to afford it anymore, whether properties are shut down and boarded up, as happened all throughout St. Stephen. So let's say you had 6, 7, 8 houses, Starshine properties, for example, that were shut down and boarded up because too many people lived in them, the disturbances, the drug use, etc. Neighbors nearby deemed it very unsafe, unsightly, undesirable. Well, if you had about 10 people, say, in each of those houses, again, they were overcrowded. I've heard personal stories. I got to see it for myself. That's 80 people suddenly out on the street scrambling, looking for somewhere to live, and St. Stephen has seen this kind of thing. Not only that, though, in addition to the homelessness issue, you are seeing people who cannot afford starter homes in New Brunswick. There are, in St. Stephen, there are no starter homes. There's no affordable homes. We are not meeting the threshold for affordability in terms of the availability. So that is why, a couple of things. I didn't number these particularly. Our priorities, my priorities need to be your priorities as well. So as I knock on doors, I say, look at this list. What do you see? What do you think? This is at the top. And like I say, this isn't necessarily a numbered list, But as I just thought about things that are confronting our municipality, this is definitely a crisis level. More housing supply is what I've got here at the top. Now you combine that with our municipal plan, which lays out 10 priorities that, again, the next council needs to decide what we're going to do. But one of the 10 is to address resident homelessness in a fair and compassionate manner. Now, I bring this up right now, not just because this is a crisis in our community that needs to be dealt with, but this is a perfect example here, and it's listed, of ways that the province needs to work with the municipality, but I will not accept what has been going on, which is to stand around and say, well, we're not doing anything if the province is not doing anything. We need to take action in the same way that, for example, we set aside $400,000 in the municipal budget to incentivize developers to come and build. We set aside $50,000 in our municipal budget to attract doctors and to attract nurse practitioners to come here so that our community can get what it needs. And when you think about the purposes of the municipality as laid out in the Local Governance Act, they are to provide good government, to provide services, facilities, or things that the council considers necessary or desirable for all or part of the local government. The third is to develop and maintain safe and viable communities. And then the last one is to foster the economic, social, and environmental well-being of its community. Well, those last two, if not the first two, are very much grounds for taking action on the homelessness issue and the housing issue. So as your mayor, I will be doggedly devoted to those things, bringing more housing supply, whether that is for people who are experiencing homelessness. Let's just talk there for a second. The shelter, absolutely needed. It is something that is critical and crucial in our community. Without it, you would have people all over the place, tents setting up outside. We had that happen. It was terrible. People were dying in the cold. People were using in public areas all over St. Stephen. Yes, now it is concentrated and localized in the Lodge area. This is, again, it's important, it's essential, and it's critical to have that in our community because of the need, that unfortunate need. But the way it is now is it's not working as best it could. How do you mitigate that? How do you make the shelter obsolete? We need to bring transitional housing. Now, just today, there was an announcement, CHCO is reporting on this, that at least 1,200 affordable housing units are going to come to New Brunswick in the coming years. The deal announced just today will see $150 million in federal funding matched by the province to bring the largest affordable housing investment in New Brunswick's history. Listen to this, though. Priority is given to shovel-ready projects that can begin construction within the next year with developments planned in partnership with community groups and private developers. And there's also a commitment in that funding for transitional and supportive housing. Friends, what we have seen on this council is a real lack of courage and ambition in solving this homelessness crisis. Even with the shelter, there's been nothing but opposition to it. There has been a lot of conflict, and I will say the shelter is there, but as a board member of Neighborhood Works, it has been very difficult because what we want to see is the end of the shelter and people in homes. Now, I am a housing first person. I'm just going to put that right out there. This is how Finland eradicated homelessness. You can ask me about that when you see me, but we need to give everyone a place to live so that something volatile like the shelter in the community, it's difficult for people who live there. It's difficult for people who work there. It's difficult for people who live around the shelter. Transitional housing will solve this problem, but also affordable housing, starter units, making it easy for developers to build small units, as we've talked about here with zoning, infill, intensifying our neighborhoods and allowing smaller homes the same way neighborhoods have developed for thousands of years. Build a starter home, add on to the house I live in. It started as a 400 square foot box. And of course, by the time I bought it in 2018, it was much larger than that. That's the kind of thing we want to see. That's the kind of, we want to allow developers, people to move in. I have kids who I hope have their own home in St. Stephen one day. I'm sure a lot of us are in the same boat. There needs to be more initiative. A municipality needs to do three things, really. It needs to make a plan so that these plans can be funded. And we see this here. The province is saying, if you have a plan, bring it. We're more likely to fund it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing you need to do is advocate for yourself. Now, is this municipality advocating with other levels of government? What's happening with this level of funding? I don't know. You don't know. That's where you need a mayor who's really communicating this and a council who's working toward this vision and this goal. And then the third thing is you just need you need courage. We need to do this together. We need to say, as a body politic, a municipality together, we are making this a priority. We are going to make it happen. We are going to get the provincial funding we need. That's why I have this on here as well. The provincial services, whether that's healthcare, in this case, whether it's housing, we need to move forward with a clear plan and the courage, because we made a plan and we advocated for ourselves, and we are going to solve this problem together. All right. This video is north of 15. There's much more that can be said, but I'm going to shut it down here tomorrow. I'll probably bring you something about the CAEH, the Canadian Association to End Homelessness, just so you understand more about what I'm saying around transitional housing and housing first, and the way you need leadership that will solve this problem for all of us together. So this continues to be a home we are proud of. Have a great rest of your day, friends. BuildUpStStephen.ca. See you tomorrow.